Welcome back to the Investor Professor podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham, and this is episode 119. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Charlie Munger, the one and only Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, passed away this past week at the age of 99. So just want to talk about what he's meant to me, what he's meant to the investment world, and all the things that we can learn from Mr. Munger's just incredible life, an incredible story, and really just to celebrate him. And if you haven't heard of him before or haven't done too much research into him, we'll try to help you out. So get your mind right and let's get to work. Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. Thanks again for joining me. I have had, I know I normally put these out on Saturday. This time it's a Sunday. I've been busy teaching, almost have the semester wrapped up. I was teaching an executive MBA class on some Saturdays, which is why I've been recording these on Sundays. That has been a lot of fun to teach some executive MBAs, and just a new challenge for me. So we look at the stock market, another great week in the stock market. I mean, we are really putting together some tremendous weeks here. A lot of the companies, again, that we have been discussing have done well. I mean, they have done well, continue to run. The market is still a little overbought, but that does not mean that people aren't going to still invest. When the market starts doing well, sometimes you can get kind of the fear of missing out comes back, and all of a sudden you get all this money coming in off the sidelines. People continue to buy. They feel like they're going to miss it. They don't want to miss it. And so, again, the lesson here is that so many times we sell out and we think that we'll buy it back later. And the problem with that is you got to be right twice. You got to be right when you sell out, and you got to be right when you buy it back. And most of the time, when you look at the studies, most people will sell out, and then they will wait until the stock that they're in, that they want to invest in is higher than it was when they sold, and then they buy back in. And so that doesn't seem very smart, and it doesn't seem very rational. And speaking of rational, this past week, Charlie Munger, the partner to Warren Buffett, partner and best friend of Warren Buffett, passed away at the age of 99. Just kind of end of an era with him passing away. And when somebody's 99 years old, it's not like you can say that you're surprised, but it doesn't mean that you still don't feel sadness and that you don't kind of miss them and start thinking about them. And so I'm going to do my best today to just kind of talk about Charlie Munger, some of the things about him. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have a bust of Charlie Munger. It's sitting right next to me as I do this. I'm wearing my Invest in Yourself Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger 5K race. And, I feel lucky. I went to a number of Berkshire Hathaway meetings where Charlie was there, including his last one this past year. And so, just thinking about him and his life and all the things and just kind of all the lessons that he's given. We've talked on this show before about mentors, and you don't have to meet all of your mentors. Sometimes you can be mentored by somebody just because of their existence. And I really appreciate that Charlie Munger was so open and so giving with the lessons and the time, the wisdom that he was able to kind of tell everybody, and that he was just the same. Like he was the same, like same old Charlie, no matter what, same person. And I always found him so funny. There's so many good. This is the great thing about like kind of the place we are technology wise is like there's so many good like YouTube videos that you can go watch. Just type in like Charlie Munger. Mungerisms is what they're called, or Charlie Munger. If you just type his name in on YouTube, you will get some pretty hilarious videos. There's some videos that are obviously him just giving great wisdom and great rules for life. And then there's others that are just so funny. His wit was just unparalleled. And I appreciated him so much. So I always felt like Warren Buffett, obviously I do not know him personally at all, but he always seems like he's a little guarded, a little bit like he has to be very careful with what he says because he doesn't know how the media is going to take it. If he hints on something, all of a sudden people go out and buy whatever company he's talking good about and whatever. So, when you go to the meeting, somebody asks a question and all this, Buffett will give an answer, and then he would always say, Charlie, and Charlie could add his own his own spin on things, and he was always just honest to a fault. And so it was so great to hear him because he would just say whatever he was thinking. And sometimes it was, not politically correct. Even the media people would kind of laugh at what he would say, but he just wouldn't hold back. And so you just have to admire the honesty in which he would answer questions and tell people, that's a terrible investment. He was always against cryptocurrency, all of the kind of the fly-by-night investments. And so he gave just so many good little nuggets of wisdom that you can go back and we can all kind of read and reread. And there's so many books. Poor Charlie's Almanac. There's one called Damn Right. Charlie Munger, The Complete Investor. The Tale of Charlie Munger. You don't even have to buy the books. You can just go to YouTube and look them up. But I will say, so I've had, two mentors that I think about that I can think of that have passed away at 99. So Charlie's 100th birthday would have been January 1st. And the other one that I really loved was John Wooden, and he, the UCLA basketball coach. He also passed away at 99, very close to his 100th birthday. And actually, Charlie Munger did an interview a couple weeks ago with CNBC that was going to be played as part of like his 100th birthday celebration. He talked about actively planning his party. And, you think about making it to 99. I feel like you should just be able to make it to 100. Like, shouldn't you just be able to click the odometer over if you make it if you're that close to making it to 100? I don't know. It just seems a little unfair. So John Wooden, the other one, at the end of these programs, I always say, don't mistake activity for achievement. And that was Coach John Wooden. So many good things. The one thing I always think about, so Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have talked on the phone every single day for, 60 years, 60, 70 years. And the one thing you have to know about Charlie Munger is he never took an economics course. He never took a business class. Like, he went to Harvard Law School, worked as an attorney for a number of years, had his own law office, was a partner in his law office, and really just kind of got tired of it and switched over to helping Buffett, to helping to doing investing, and just loved it, fell in love with it. But one of the things that I can't even express how often I think about this. But one of the things that I heard in an interview years ago is that when him and Buffett are discussing things, he would always think about, okay, what is the dumbest thing we could do right now? Like, what is the absolute dumbest thing we could do right now? And of course, they would come up with whatever it was, and they would say, okay, let's not do that. Like, let's just make sure that we don't do that. Let's just avoid, the dumbest thing that we could possibly do. And for me, I've used that personally and professionally in my practice, because normally, when I'm thinking about that is when the market is not doing well, and the easy way out is to like sell your investment, right? The easy way out is to say, man, I can't take this pain anymore. I am done with this, because as soon as you sell your investment, the pain is over. But a lot of times when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that is the dumbest possible thing I could do right now. I'm going to sell when everybody else is selling, which is just not a great place to be. And so just little things like that, what is the dumbest thing we could do right now, and avoiding those. And he talked about that a lot, just avoiding the common mistakes that so many people make. If you can just avoid the common mistakes that so many people make. And of course, he also discussed just having longevity. Both, the fact that him and Buffett both have lived into their 90s has given them such a tremendous runway. The fact that they did avoid a number of mistakes has allowed them to really just compound their wealth at just an incredible pace that most people never get to. And so there's a couple other things that he talked about a lot, which was talking about bubbles and when the market becomes irrational. And he talked about if you use the mathematics of a chain letter or a Ponzi scheme with a legitimate development, you're going to have trouble. And so his example on this was at the time was the internet, where you have something that is legitimate. Like the internet was a legitimate thing. It was going to change the world. But the amount of money that poured into companies because they had a .com address just got out of hand. And he was saying, his point is it's not that this is going to change the world, but it doesn't mean that these things can't be overvalued, even though they are going to change the world. And you have to be careful. Like you don't know who's going to win and, all these kind of things. And so those kind of lessons, I think about those today. I think about AI. We know that that's going to change the world. We don't really know how it's going to change the world. We know that some companies are probably going to become very wealthy off of that. We don't know who's going to ultimately be the winner. But these are the kind of things, the kind of thoughts that should be in the back of your mind when you're thinking about those, when you're thinking about the markets and the values of companies. The other thing I really appreciated about Charlie Munger is the fact that he was such just an amazing reader and would read things on just a multitude of different subjects. So he would just read from just every single subject and try to learn different ways of thinking based on, how does this discipline think about, how does this discipline approach problems? How does a biologist approach problems? How does an engineer approach problems? How does a chemist approach problems? How does a politician approach problems? And so he would just go through and read and basically just such a student of learning and just a lifelong learner. I mean, maybe his greatest legacy, honestly, in my opinion, is just his commitment to lifelong learning and constantly challenging himself, constantly challenging his own thinking to think about where could I be going wrong? Where can I get better? Just all of those things, right? So, and thinking about things in simple terms, like what could be a simple answer to this that maybe everybody else is overthinking it. So when you look back, I was looking at, I keep a lot of the things that he's discussed over the years. I think about a lot of the quotes that he's made. I printed some of these out. So not always good to be flipping pages while you're trying to record. But you look at and you see just kind of how all these things were coming in. And one, some of the things he said. So I'll just read some of these, and they won't sound near as good as they do when he was discussing them. But he'd say, knowing what you don't know is more useful than being brilliant. Acknowledging what you don't know is the dawning of wisdom. And he said, people are trying to be smart, and all I'm trying to do is not be idiotic. But it's harder than most people think. And in his last interview with CNBC, which you can go watch, he said that one of the things, he just said, avoid the crazy. Just avoid the crazy. Just crazy thoughts, crazy decisions. Just try to avoid, the craziness. And he discussed that a lot, just trying to make sure that you don't make the common mistakes that everybody else is making, which I already said. And he also talked about just being okay not doing something. And so, being lazy, sitting on your hands. Of course, he used a different word, but sitting on your hands. You're paying less to brokers, you're listening to less nonsense, and if it works, the tax system gives you an extra 1, 2, or 3 percentage points a year. And so, sticking with what you're doing, saying that you should remember that good ideas are rare. When the odds are greatly in your favor, you should bet heavily. And, acknowledging the fact that smart people aren't exempt from from disasters like overconfidence. And so just all of these things, he's just so rational, so very thoughtful with the wisdom and just trying to like basically keep calm and not get too overwhelmed with things that are changing. And basically, kind of the one thing that he always said was spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up, and living in a way that is consistent with that. So they talked about, his eulogy and things of that nature. And he said, my eulogy is the way that I've lived my life and the way that I've tried to do things and trying to do things the right way. And to trying to, he talked about being a partner with Buffett and saying, to have a good partnership, you got to be a good partner. And you gotta be willing to be honest with the person, but not in a necessarily a mean way, but you have to be a good partner. And so told people to the dangers of trying to get rich quick. So, his quote was, the desire to get rich quick is pretty dangerous. And so I think we've discussed that on an episode in the past where I mentioned nobody wants to get rich slow, right? Everybody wants to get rich quick. And so that is just a very dangerous way of thinking and usually leads people down the wrong path, and people get burnt and they get hurt. And then they think that investing, is not for them, or that it's rigged, or that it's like just the same as gambling. And that leads to a lot of bad choices. And it says, and it's just useful dealing with people you can trust and getting all others the hell out of your life. Wise people want to avoid other people who are just total rat poison, and there are a lot of them. So, he definitely had a different way of putting this than a lot of people, and he was the type of person that could, that could get away with it. But he talked about just trying to remove ignorance. If there's any secret we have, it's ignorance removal. And the nice thing is we still have a lot of ignorance left to remove. And he talked about the beginning of wisdom is knowing that you don't know a lot, right? That there's so much that you do not know. And he just did a great job of verbalizing that to people, putting it in a way that people could understand and that they could actually use in their life. I think often, because I do teach finance, of all the gosh, you can look up so many videos where he talks about how bad finance is taught in business schools, and how that there's formulas that are taught in business schools that are not useful, and all of these. And I think about that constantly when I'm teaching finance to students, because there are a lot of finance formulas that you're never going to use, and that they have so many holes in them that they aren't useful. And so I always think about when he would say something, I'd be like, almost like he's calling me out. And so when I teach finance, just like on this podcast, if you've ever had me in class, or if you ever do have me in class, I try to teach from a very practical standpoint, in a way that you can actually use the material, use the things that you're learning on a daily basis. Because if you can't teach it to somebody in that way on how they're going to be able to use it, then they're never even going to open their mind enough to be able to absorb it. So just so many good things that Charlie Munger has kind of stood for and brought to the world, that it's just a great day to be able to celebrate him. It'll be extremely, extremely sad that he won't be at the annual Berkshire Hathaway meeting last year, but it's it's hard. You look at interviews of him, and as people age, you see him get slower, and it's hard not to get a little sad and nostalgic when you see, just even at 99, how quick-witted he was. And then I look back at videos of him from the 80s, when I was a child, and it's like, man, I mean, just amazing how fast, his mind was. And Warren Buffett said he had the fastest 30-second mind of anybody of anybody he could think of. And so just tremendous. So just kind of a funny thing, if you go watch the CNBC interview of him from a couple of weeks ago, they asked him if there's anything that he didn't accomplish in life that he wishes he would have accomplished. And of course, he brings up the fact that he never caught a 200-pound tuna. And what was funny about that is that he said, I'm so much weaker than I was when I was 96. He goes, I just wouldn't have a shot at doing it now at 99. I should have done it when I was like 96. But I just appreciate so much the fact that he's constantly, no matter what his age, was striving to be better, was trying to learn things, didn't take his age into account at all. Because when you look at the studies of how many people just quit learning, they get a degree, they walk across the stage, and they never read another book. And that is a tragic, tragic thing. So just kind of doing your part to be a good member of society and to keep your mind sharp and to keep learning, keep striving to be better. All of those things, you add them up over time, and it produces a pretty tremendous life. It creates a pretty tremendous life. So we'll try to do our best to share a couple videos of him. We'll put some in the show notes that you can go watch. But if you don't have much experience with Charlie, go look some stuff up. Kind of owe it to yourself to do so, and look at some of the great quotes and some of the great wisdom that he was able to discuss and to share for such a long period of time. So with that, I think we're done here on talking about Mr. Munger. So again, back to John Wooden. Don't mistake activity for achievement, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.